I have a couple questions from SJ in the chat room. The first one being Google Apps services versus apps in the marketplace. Is the essential difference that services are native Google and marketplace apps are third party?
Well, yes. I mean that's I would consider that to be the essential difference. I mean, the word native has connotations when you talk about operating systems, like an application being native to a certain operating system. And these they're definitely the Google Apps Marketplace applications are third-party applications that were built to run on Google's systems. So they I'm not being non-native is not quite the word that I would use, but they I mean yes, I mean that's the essential difference. There's going to be plenty of other differences in terms of the interface. I mean, people who create apps for the marketplace have quite a lot of latitude in terms of the interface that they create, and there's going to be a learning curve with a marketplace application that you aren't necessarily going to have as much of with a Google application, just because there's some standardization to the Google application. But the essential difference is that the third party versus Google developer. You don't need Premiere in order to run marketplace apps, and some of the apps are free, and some of them are for pay. But that's at a high level is the essential difference.
Okay, great. I have another question from SJ in the chat room. Can Premier groups be used in permissions?
Well, I mean, I think the question here is, and correct me if I'm reading this wrong. I think the question is, can you create groups that have just different levels of permission? Basically, can you create groups that have that are restricted to a group of people, or that are visible, are restricted so that not only a couple of people can be in it, but nobody else can even see it, versus the group that I just created is completely open. People are free to add themselves to it if they have the hyperlink for it, and they could just pull it up. So, I mean, the answer is just emphatically yes. I mean, when you are in the create a group screen, you have this here, where basically this set of this radio buttons here that give you the option to choose between the permissive access restrictions that I've set versus much more restricted ones. Does that answer SJ's question? Are you seeing his responses easily enough to?
SJ says, can I assign sharing to a doc or a folder to all members of a group without listing them individually? And if I add a member to the group, will they automatically have access to all the docs?
So this is a question that ties that the question is, how do you use the groups feature for sharing in the context of Google Docs? And the answer, and I think he probably knows the answer to that question. That if I for example have within my Coffee Kooks domain, let me go ahead and sign out of this and sign back into my administrator account. I have a group that I set up for everyone inside of my domain. And the group is called Everyone. So here's my dashboard, and if I go over to groups, I can see, actually I could, oh yes, so I have a Coffee Kooks users group, which has the email address everyone@coffeekooks.com. And basically, this has set by default all users within coffeekooks.com. And so if I am in Google Apps then, and I go, let me pull, if I'm in Google Docs, I'm sorry, docs.coffeekooks.net, or no, it's .com, I'm sorry. And I create a document. Let's just go ahead. I'm just going to take this this first set of slides for my presentation and share it with everyone. I can add names, email addresses, and groups here. So I can type in everyone at coffeekooks.com, which pops up this list. I'm going to switch that to, I'm going to give everyone view rights, and then click on share. And so what this should do is share that particular document with everyone in the Coffee Kooks users domain. And if I add anyone to my domain, they would automatically be incorporated into this Coffee Kooks users group, and therefore they would have access to this document. Now, I'm not completely out of the woods, however. If I sign out and say I want to log into my mail.coffeekooks.com, and I'll log in as the sort of fake user that I created, MM2. And you can see that basically this user did not get an invitation to that document. It may be that I didn't press send, but essentially sharing documents with people will not necessarily send them a note telling them that they have had that document shared with them. And certainly if we were in a situation where I created a document and then shared it with everyone at coffeekooks.com, and then, oh, well, there it goes. I did get the note. So I've received this email at my fake account. But anyhow, and that's because it's been shared with me. And basically everybody in the account just received that email. But if somebody was added, if somebody was added to our Google Apps installation, they wouldn't necessarily know that this particular document had been shared with them because they would not have received the email when this particular email was sent out. And in fact, and this is something I think one of the things we went through, I think in the second session, if you have a document shared with you, you won't even necessarily see it in your document list. You know, a lot of times what you'll need to do is to receive a link to that document from the creator of that document, or actually anybody who has access to the document and a link could send you the link to that document. And then when you looked at that link, you would be able to see the document. But you know, it won't necessarily bang your door down if you have been added subsequently and missed the original announcement for a document, even if it's been shared with your group. So, I mean, that's and we went through a couple of different permutations for that in the second section. And it, you know, depending on exactly what you click in what order, people don't necessarily automatically have documents popping up in their file list. But you can always, when in doubt, just grab the link from the sharing area and make sure that you've sent it to everyone.
From Lee Blue in the chat room, what are the pros and cons of creating a Google group within Google Apps versus just creating a Google group outside of Google Apps?
Well, you know, I think that I mean, the first immediate pro that pops into my mind, and I'll just sort of say this and then give you a more general answer, is, you know, for groups that you want to share with everyone in your domain, you can add people to your domain, and they'll be able to see the group when they go to the group's web page. Whether they've been been added to that. I mean, if the group has been shared with them, new people to the domain can very easily go to a repository of that information. So, if I'm in the context of a business, I might want to share that kind of information with everyone in the business and no one in the outside world. And that's sort of a special case of sharing. And so, if you're already using Google Apps and you've made that decision, then that feature is going to be useful to you. But the question of what the difference is I mean there really isn't that much of a difference except for those sharing options. And it's actually been a couple weeks since I've looked at the vanilla Google Groups, but I think there might actually be a couple of features in the normal user account Google Group that there aren't in the Google Apps version. And that's certainly the case with most of the programs within the Google Apps suite. So you just, if you have an ongoing concern in an organization that has to do contiguous collaboration, then on balance, these individual tools will be superior because of the sharing features that are offered in the Google Apps context than in just a plain old everybody has individual Gmail accounts contexts.
Okay, great. One last question. We have time?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, from G Blink in the chat room, checking reliability of third-party apps is done by Google, or we have to do it? And if so, how? And then they go on to say, I mean, beyond customer reviews.
I think that the answer to this question, I can't speak to the specific oversight that Google gives over the applications that are accepted into the marketplace. I know that they don't. I know that they don't just allow any old spammer to throw apps up in the marketplace. But in terms of their due diligence, I can't necessarily speak to that. I do know that somebody who comes to Google with a solid application is going to have access to your data. So no matter what they give to Google, it could be the best application in the world. The vendor will now have access to your data, and that's sort of a trust thing that you just need to factor into. I don't think that there's anything really magical about this decision here. I mean, this is a decision that all of us have made many, many times. Anytime that we have logged on to Facebook or loaded a program, in terms of most rich applications will send user data of some sort, if not only just for crash purposes, back to the vendor that created that did it. And certainly when it comes to applications like Facebook and Twitter, I mean, we all are accustomed to sharing information with external corporations, and definitely take a look. I mean, if I were making this decision, I would look at the reviews, I would look at the website, I would hopefully try to get an actual personal referral from someone. The same way you would check out anything else, and certainly any other software. The fact that the operating system is Google Apps rather than Microsoft Windows, it actually shouldn't necessarily have that much of an effect on the decision process you'd go through, except for the fact that the vendor is likely to have more access to your data than just any old rich app would. So that's how I would respond.